What if the most dangerous person in your life isn't loud or violent, but calm, attentive, and impossibly kind? What if the real threat is the one who smiles warmly, while slowly distorting your sense of self? They remember your birthday. They hold your hand when you're down, but somehow you always feel smaller, more unsure, more dependent. And worst of all, you think you're the problem. That's the terrifying power of the hidden predator. Not the one who yells, but the one who whispers. Not the one who pushes, but the one who pulls subtly until you forget who you were before them. And make no mistake, these people don't break you with obvious cruelty. They unravel you with calculated affection. This video exposes the 7 unmistakable signs you're living with a demon, in disguise a person who appears loving but operates like a parasite. They feed on your peace, your clarity, and your confidence. And they do it without ever raising their voice. If you've ever felt like something was off but couldn't name it, this is the clarity you've been searching for. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and let's uncover the truth together. Tap like, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom without the fluff, and comment below. The mask is slipping. Sign number 1. They drain you emotionally, but you can't explain why. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling exhausted, but with no idea why? You didn't argue. There was no insult, no raised voice. And yet something inside you felt depleted, like a part of you went missing. That's the first red flag of hidden toxicity, emotional exhaustion, without clear cause. And it's one of the most dangerous because it doesn't look like harm. It looks like care. It feels like guilt. And it hides behind words like, "I'm just trying to help." The ancient Stoics warned us anything that cost your peace is far too expensive. But what they also knew, what most people today still overlook, is that peace isn't just stolen through conflict. It's drained through confusion, through small moments of second-guessing, through people who seem well-meaning, but leave you feeling like you're the problem. Let me tell you about someone I once knew, a friend's cousin named Leo. He wasn't aggressive. He didn't yell or criticize. He just had this subtle way of making people feel like they were never enough. His girlfriend used to be vibrant, confident, quick to laugh. But slowly, she began shrinking around him. He never told her to stop painting. He just never asked to see her work. He never said she couldn't go out with friends. He just made her feel guilty when she did. He'd say things like, "I just miss you when you're gone," or "It's fine. I'll just eat alone again." It sounds harmless until you realize it's death by 1,000 sighs. She began fading without even realizing it. This is emotional erosion, not the fire that burns you, but the slow leak that empties you. And unless you learn to spot it, you'll keep blaming yourself for feeling tired, distant, or numb. That's where Stoic philosophy becomes your weapon. It teaches you to trust the energy underneath the words, to listen when your peace begins to retreat. You don't need a dramatic reason to walk away. Feeling constantly drained is reason enough. In the next section, we'll unravel the manipulator's favorite mask charm. Because when harm wears a smile, it's not just harder to detect, it's harder to believe it's real. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Sign number 2. They weaponize your vulnerabilities. The most dangerous people in your life aren't the ones who mock you from a distance. They're the ones who once held your hand while you cried. The ones you trusted enough to tell your secrets. The ones who asked about your fears, not to help you heal them, but to study them. Because when someone knows your wounds and chooses to press on them instead of protect them, what you're dealing with is not love. It's manipulation in its most intimate form. This is how real psychological control begins, not with force, but with access. You opened up to them about your past, a mistake you regret, a childhood scar, a moment of failure that still makes you wince. And in that moment, they said all the right things. They made you feel understood, safe, seen. But weeks later, or months when you challenge them, or simply try to set a boundary, they bring it up again. Not to support you, but to weaken you. They use your own truth as a trap. Their tone stays calm. Their face looks innocent. But their words are surgical. And the pain they cause, it cuts deeper than any insult ever could. This is the hallmark of someone who doesn't just want closeness, they want control. Stoic philosophy warns us never to let our peace be dependent on someone else's actions. Epictetus taught that what's truly ours is our judgment, our inner will. But when someone begins twisting your confessions into weapons, they are no longer a partner in your life. They are a quiet enemy of your mind. What makes this behavior so corrosive is how subtle it is. They don't yell. They don't explode. They disguise their strikes as concern, their guilt trips as love. And that makes it hard to name the abuse. That's the point. The more you try to explain what's happening, the more you feel like you're the unstable one. You start shrinking. You second-guess every sentence. And in doing so, you hand over more power without realizing it. But the Stoics offer a solution observation without attachment. They remind us that we cannot control what others say or do, but we can control how we respond. So if you start feeling unsafe with what you once shared in confidence, that's not paranoia. That's wisdom tapping you on the shoulder. And in the next part of this journey, we'll peel back the next layer of deception, false charm. Because not every villain comes with a scowl. Some arrive with compliments with warmth, and with just enough love to keep you from noticing they're slowly taking you apart. Stay tuned. The mask is starting to slip. Sign number 3. They never apologize, they manipulate the narrative. There's a certain kind of psychological warfare that doesn't leave bruises, but it breaks something far deeper, your trust in your own mind. It begins with a disagreement, maybe something small. You try to talk it out calmly. You use I statements. You give them space to respond. But instead of accountability, what you get is a maze. A web of half-truths, redirections, and emotional acrobatics that somehow leaves you apologizing for bringing it up in the first place. This is not a misunderstanding. It's a strategy, a tactic used by those who are more interested in preserving their ego than healing a wound. And the worst part, it works in silence. There's no yelling, no name-calling, just subtle shifts in the conversation that turn your pain into their burden, your clarity into confusion. You leave the room wondering, was I overreacting? Did I remember it wrong? Maybe it really was my fault. That's the brilliance and the danger of narrative manipulation. It's not about denying facts. It's about rearranging them. And over time, the damage isn't just emotional. It's existential. You begin to hand over the authority of your own memory, your own experiences to someone who has no intention of honoring them. You stop trusting yourself. Stoicism calls this out for what it is: a form of theft, not of objects, but of perception. And the antidote is clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that truth does not need to shout. It simply is. In a world where someone is constantly trying to rewrite your reality, Stoic philosophy anchors you to something solid: your reasoned judgment, your moral center, your lived experience. When manipulators twist the story, they're not seeking resolution, They're seeking control. But you don't need to match their tactics. You don't need to argue, explain, or beg to be understood. What you need is to know who you are and hold that line, even when they try to blur it. And here's what makes this form of manipulation so common. It hides especially well in long-term relationships, marriages, families, close friendships, where shared history can become a smokescreen for abuse. The more someone knows about your past, the easier it is for them to bend your present. That's why Stoic resilience is so essential, not just to endure difficulty, but to see clearly through it. Coming up next, we'll pull back the curtain on one of the most seductive tactics in the manipulator's arsenal, the kind of praise that isn't praise at all. Because when someone claps the loudest for your success, but secretly feels threatened by it, the real danger doesn't show in what they say. It shows in what they hide. Sign number 4. They enjoy your pain subtly. Some people don't attack you with words, they watch you suffer with quiet satisfaction. They don't mock your pain or gloat when you fall. That would make their intentions too obvious. Instead, they sit just close enough to be seen as supportive while secretly feeding on your despair. They offer soft words, gentle sighs, and just the right amount of concern, but always when the damage is done and your spirit is already bruised. And somehow, in the middle of your lowest moments, you start to believe they're your only safe place. This is one of the most chilling forms of covert manipulation, when someone appears to be your caretaker, but only ever shows up when you're in pieces. At first, you think they're simply better at offering comfort than celebration. But slowly, a more disturbing pattern reveals itself. When you're thriving, they become cold, distant, unreachable. But when you're in pain, grieving lost, broken, they're right there, front and center. Offering a tissue, a meal, a shoulder, but never support that leads you toward independence. Just enough sympathy to keep you returning. They'll praise your endurance, not your victories. They'll admire your survival, but ignore your joy. And if you start to rise, if you dare to glow again, they pull away, like your happiness has pushed them out of orbit. Why? Because your strength threatens their role in your life. Because the more whole you become, the less they matter. The Stoics were clear: true friendship uplifts the soul and respects your peace. But these people don't celebrate your growth. They bond with your brokenness. Your lowest moments are where they feel most useful, most powerful. This isn't love. It's emotional parasitism disguised as compassion. What you're experiencing isn't just moodiness or insecurity on their part. It's a strategy. By reinforcing the idea that they're the only one who truly understands you when you're down, they create a dependency. You feel guilty for outgrowing them. You hesitate to share good news. You begin to believe that your healing somehow betrays them. That's not support. That's manipulation. And the Stoic response: it's not confrontation. It's clarity. As Marcus Aurelius taught, your thoughts shape your soul. So what happens when you're constantly around someone who lights up during your darkest hours? You begin to dim yourself without even realizing it. Stop confusing attention for care. Stop interpreting their presence during your pain as proof of love. The people who truly belong in your life will not just stay through your storms. They'll dance with you in the sunlight too. Coming up next, we'll expose one of the manipulator's most deceptive tactics, making isolation feel like devotion. Because the most effective cages are the ones they convince you to lock. Sign number 5. They isolate you, but call it love or loyalty. Real isolation doesn't always come with slammed doors or harsh commands. Sometimes it sounds like, "I just miss you when you're gone." Sometimes it wears the face of care. It offers a hug while quietly pulling you away from everything and everyone that once reminded you of who you were. This tactic doesn't force you into loneliness. It seduces you into it. And by the time you realize your world has shrunk, they're the only person left inside of it. At first, it looks like closeness. You start turning down invitations, skipping group chats, canceling plans. Not because you no longer care, but because being around others suddenly feels like betrayal. They never tell you not to go. They just withdraw when you do. Offer subtle guilt. Make passive remarks like, "I guess I don't matter anymore," or "I thought we were a team." And so you stay. You stay to preserve peace, to avoid the emotional frost that comes after you choose your own life for a moment. You call it love. You call it commitment. But what's really happening is erosion of your independence, your connections, your sense of self. I once met a man named Howard at a community lecture on emotional resilience. He shared how after nearly 25 years of marriage, he couldn't remember the last time he had a genuine conversation with a friend. Not because anyone stopped calling him, but because he had stopped answering. His wife would always find a reason why certain friends weren't good influences, why other couples were secretly envious, why even a coffee meetup felt like abandonment. She never shouted. She never said no, but she made it clear, "If you love me, you don't need them." Over the years, he internalized that message. And one day, he looked around and realized he was loyal, but completely alone. That's not loyalty. That's strategic isolation. And it's devastating, because once you're cut off from your support system, your reference points disappear. There's no one to say, "This feels off." No one to remind you that love doesn't require erasing your community. And no one to help you remember who you were before the silence settled in. Stoic philosophy teaches that we are social creatures by design. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that what's harmful to the hive is harmful to the bee. Anyone who pulls you away from the world under the guise of love is not shielding you. They're controlling the narrative. And once they become the only voice in your life, your thoughts begin to echo theirs. The Stoic response is subtle but powerful. Don't fight the isolation, outgrow it. Reclaim your presence in the world. Rebuild connections that mirror back your worth, not just your dependence. True relationships don't shrink you. They ground you, uplift you, reconnect you to yourself and others. And in the next part, we'll look at how manipulators don't just isolate, they confuse. Specifically, how they use compliments to keep you doubting your power. Because not all praise is pure. Sometimes it's sugar-coated control designed to keep you small. Stay sharp. The truth is in the details. Sign number 6. They mock your growth and plant doubt. Growth can be uncomfortable not just for you, but for the people who were never meant to come with you. The moment you begin evolving emotionally, spiritually, mentally, there are some who won't cheer for you. They'll laugh, not loudly, not cruelly, but with a smirk, a sarcastic comment, a joke that cuts just deep enough to make you question yourself. That's how they work. They don't block the door to your progress. They stand just behind it, whispering reasons why you shouldn't walk through it. Psychologists have noted this subtle sabotage for decades. It's not failure that frightens the insecure. It's your success. Your healing exposes their refusal to grow. Your confidence reminds them of the power they've never dared to claim. And if they've built their identity around your weakness, if your self-doubt has been their playground, then your growth isn't inspiring. It's threatening. So they don't say, "Don't change." Instead, they plant seeds of hesitation. You say you're going to therapy. They reply, "Again, You start setting boundaries. They ask, "Why are you being so cold lately?" You begin pursuing goals that excite you. They chuckle. "We'll see how long this lasts." It sounds harmless, but it's calculated. These aren't observations. They're attempts to anchor you to an older, smaller version of yourself, the version they can still control. This is psychological tethering, not with chains, but with shame. They make your growth feel awkward, like a betrayal. Like you're abandoning something sacred by choosing to evolve. But in truth, you're not betraying them. You're just outgrowing the version of you they depended on to feel superior. And here's where Stoic philosophy slices through the fog. Marcus Aurelius warned us not to waste time proving ourselves. A wise person doesn't argue their worth, they live it. Stoicism teaches us that mockery from others is often a mirror of their discomfort. If your clarity makes someone uneasy, that's not your burden to carry. That's their unresolved reflection staring back at them. When someone belittles your development, what they're really saying is, "I need you to stay small, so I don't have to feel my own stagnation." That's not love. That's emotional self-preservation at your expense. And your job is not to prove your change is real. Your job is to keep becoming. Quietly, steadily, without fanfare, without apology. Because true growth doesn't need an audience. It just needs momentum. And once you stop asking for permission to grow, you'll see clearly who was truly for you and who only loved the version of you that didn't yet know your power. In the final section of this video, we'll uncover the most revealing moment of all, when the mask finally slips. When you realize the kindness, the loyalty, even the affection was never unconditional. It was leverage. And now that you've outgrown their control, they'll stop pretending, and you'll finally see what they were hiding all along. Sign number 7. They act like the victim every time one of the most deceptive forms of manipulation isn't loud. It doesn't scream, accuse, or even defend. It rewrites. It rewrites the story until the person who caused the harm suddenly becomes the one who was hurt all along. You come forward with honesty. You explain how their actions impacted you, not with anger, but with reason. And somehow, you leave the conversation feeling like you're the one who overreacted. You're the one who's unfair. Because now, they're crying. They're disappointed. They're the victim. This is one of the most insidious emotional tactics, narrative inversion. A strategy used not to repair the damage, but to erase it and replace it with a version of events where they never did anything wrong. And the more you try to clarify the truth, the more they twist your words. You set a boundary. Suddenly, you're cold. You express hurt. Now you're too sensitive. You withdraw to protect your peace. You've changed. But here's the truth. They changed the second they made your pain about them. This isn't immaturity. It's manipulation cloaked in vulnerability. By constantly casting themselves as the misunderstood one, the hurt one, the one just trying their best, they gain two things: freedom from responsibility and sympathy from everyone else. That's not accountability. That's performance. And it's designed to keep you apologizing for your reactions instead of holding them accountable for their actions. What makes this tactic so dangerous is the long-term effect it has on your sense of reality. You begin to second-guess everything: your emotions, your tone, even your right to speak up. You start walking on eggshells around someone who's already shattered the floor. And without realizing it, you begin to silence yourself, not because they asked you to, but because you've learned that speaking truth only leads to guilt. This is where Stoic wisdom offers profound guidance. Seneca warned against defending yourself too eagerly, not because defense is wrong, but because desperation to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you only drains your strength. The Stoics remind us, you do not need external validation to confirm internal truth. Clarity is a private power. You don't have to be believed to be right. You don't need their confession to trust your own experience. And when someone always ends up the victim, every argument, every disagreement, every consequence, what they're really saying is, I refuse to be responsible for the pain I cause. Their tears may be real, but the timing, the context, the repeated patterns, that's strategy, not empathy. Emotional misdirection, not remorse. The Stoic path doesn't lead us to revenge or endless debates. It leads us back to the center, back to inner stillness where we stop chasing understanding from those who refuse to give it. Because peace isn't found in being proven right. It's found in no longer needing to be. And that's exactly what we'll uncover in the final message of this video, how to reclaim your power, not by proving them wrong, but by becoming so rooted in truth that no one can drag you back into their illusion. The greatest revenge isn't justice, it's freedom. It's walking away whole, while they're still rehearsing their version of the story you've already outgrown. So ask yourself, have you started seeing the cracks behind their charm? The way they twist reality, just enough to make you doubt your feelings. How their cruelty hides behind closed doors, softened by just enough kindness to keep you confused. Maybe they say you're too emotional or too sensitive, but deep down, you know better. You're not falling apart. You're waking up. And once you see the truth, there's no going back. You don't need their approval to take back your peace. You don't need their guilt to walk away. A Stoic knows your mind is yours to protect. Leaving isn't weakness, it's clarity. Let them keep performing for those still fooled. You've already moved on. If this resonated, don't let it slip away. Like the video to anchor this truth. Subscribe for more sharp, honest Stoic wisdom. And drop a comment, I see it now. Because healing starts when truth is spoken. And once you see through the act, it never works on you again.